Rainey, and sources tell ESPN's Adam Schefter the decision was not based on performance, but because of a violation of team rules. ESPN is at Colts training camp today. We will have live reports throughout the day on SportsCenter on ESPN TV. The preseason begins next Sunday when the Giants meet Buffalo in the Hall of Fame game. Giants coach Tom Coughlin would like to see his first-round draft pick, Odell Beckham, back on the field.
It's more than that. Trying to put a team together. We saw too much of that in the spring. It'd be nice to get him back practice. He actually looks pretty good out there, moving around and catching the ball, and he doesn't favor anything. And I'm just hoping it's a real short amount of time.
Beckham, the 12th pick in the draft, remains sidelined with a sore hamstring. Closing arguments begin today in Clippers owner Donald Sterling's lawsuit. He's contesting a sale agreement reached between his wife Shelley and former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. The Baltimore Orioles have put relief pitcher T.J. McFarland on the bereavement list following the death of his grandmother yesterday. He'll miss the first 2 games of the Orioles-Angels series, which begins tomorrow night.
Brought to you by Mazda. Improve your road game. Mazda is the only automaker to have 2 sedans on this year's Car and Driver's 10 Best. The Mazda 3 and Mazda 6 combine the performance you want with the efficiency you need.
You're listening to The Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rock, Jerry Myers back with you, hour 2, numero dos, here on the Sports Fix as we roll on and getting ready to go to the phone lines momentarily. My man Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan with us every Monday and Wednesday, so phone lines are not going to be open to you because he's on them, but you can talk to us on Facebook and Twitter and email. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, The Sports Fix at AOL.com. There's a little George Thorogood there in the background, a little bad to the bone. And yeah, we're going to talk some Browns training camp here too. But before I even get into that, when I get Dan up here, I want to continue where we were going before the break, talking some Indians there. And so let's go to the phones right now. My man, Dan Wismar. Dan, how you doing this afternoon?
I am doing great, J-Rock. Good to be with you.
Good to have you, as always. And I'm sure you were listening there before the break when I brought you up. Where are you at? I mean, obviously, this is trade week here. I mean, we've kind of talked about this a little bit. You heard kind of my thoughts on things. I know today was not, as I said, the best day to go out there and say, don't give up on the season when they ended the trip the way that they did. But I mean, I really do believe the things that I said there. And I was just telling somebody during the break, at the end of the day, they're a good team. Are they a good enough team? I don't know. But, this week, a chance to add somebody. I got ticked. Before we talk about trades, what I said about Terry Francona before the break with Justin Masterson, did you catch that switch blatantly of what he said?
I really didn't, and I missed that part when you were talking about it. All I saw really all weekend was Masterson's line from his start in Columbus, which didn't give me any encouragement whatsoever.
Well, let me tell you what happened.
As far as what Francona said, I am not on top of that, I'm sorry to say.
This is what happened. And I mean, as a matter of fact, I saw it quoted in several different articles, so I know I'm not the only one that heard it. But before that start that you were just referring to, Terry said, we advised Justin, the front office specifically told him to go out there tonight and pitch like it's a major league playoff game. Go out there and it's the real deal. And then after the performance was terrible, then the next day he said, well, we knew that it was a minor league start and he was working on a few pitches that he wouldn't necessarily have done if it was a major league game. And I'm like, that is in direct contrast to what you said yesterday. And it felt to me, for one of the first times he's been here, that he was directly changing what he said to fit what the front office is having him do, which is justify why 2 terrible AAA starts later, Justin Masterson is being re-added to the rotation.
Yeah, that's a little bit disconcerting, and I did not see that, but that's a good catch by you there. The bottom line is there appears to be nothing resolved with Justin Masterson. I mean, That's really where we are, and the fact that he's starting Friday, just fills me with dread. I mean, I just don't know if we've accomplished anything by sending him down. We don't still have a clear reading on whether there was in fact an injury there or whether the knee is a reason or an excuse. We really don't know that. And the fact that he's coming back up here having proven nothing in his quote-unquote rehab starts seems like wheel spinning to me, and I'm not at all encouraged by it. So, how can you be? Really at this point?
And I said that today. I said, man, that's one of the things where these guys come at me and they're like, hey, man, you're sticking up for the Indians. And that's one of the things that, and I mentioned that last week, of all the things that happened for the Indians last week, the most feedback I got was from the article that the Indians, I think they put it out on their website, where Antonetti said, getting Masterson back is as good as making a trade. And I got blew up by fans that said, this is why I'm done with this team and the Dolans and this and that, and thank God it's training camp and all that. And I get that some of that is the normal stuff that you get from fans, but they really had some point on that because it was based to them. They feel like it's the front office saying, here's a pile of crap, open up and eat it.
Yeah, that's true. It is a little bit of what you call spin by the front office, and certainly Francona's comments the day after seem to be in the category of spin. But like you say, this is typical sort of fan narrow-mindedness. The same fans who were furious that Masterson wasn't signed to a contract for 3 years, before the season started. So, you can kind of get fans talking out both sides of their mouths. There's nothing new about that. I'm so tired of the Dolans are cheap kind of stuff. Everybody is around this town. That kind of knee-jerk reaction of fans to throw it all on the Dolans' unwillingness to spend money. Certainly that hasn't been the case here of late, and some fans just don't want to accept the realities of what small market teams have to do. I realize that excuse too gets tired over the years, but it is reality, and you've got to live with it.
I'm with you, and I think the narrative gets tied together because I get you about spending money in recent years, but I think different people apply that word cheap in different ways. And like you said, bottom line is no matter where me and Dan go with this conversation, nothing's changing. We're going to have some fun talking about it, but the reality is nothing is changing. But, like John Axford, there's an example. The fact that clearly the John Axford experiment went south. It went south quickly, and you have gotten nothing of value from him all season long. I got to be honest, every time he comes in a game, I get a lump in my stomach, like, how is he going to screw this thing up this time? I'm just not – I gave him time earlier to correct himself, but when you're sitting here this late in the season and you still haven't – he's had a small stretch of success. Other than that, nothing. And my thing with him is he makes $4.5 million. If he made $500,000 a year, he'd be DFA'd back in June. But the fact that he makes $4.5 million a year, he's going to be forced out there as often as possible for the remainder of the season. Now, that's where some people say, well, and I get it, because they want them to eat money. Some owners will eat money. The Indians don't have that ownership. You can say that's good or you can say that's bad. I'm not saying it's good business sense to just eat losses. Dan Gilbert doesn't mind to do it. That's why people think he's a great owner, because he will eat loss after loss to try to chase some success. But that doesn't make you necessarily a good owner. It makes you a popular owner, but it doesn't make you a good owner, as we've seen. The Cavs have up until the jackpot that they hit this summer, the Cavs had no tangible results yet shown from him spending that money, is what I'm saying. Although, counterpoint, it also put them in position to do the things that they did this year, so you could go that way too. But either way, because you can say, hey, if he didn't waste $13 million getting Baron Davis, then maybe this doesn't happen, that doesn't happen, LeBron doesn't come home, then he doesn't make $1 billion off of that. But anyways, looking at the Dolans, though, I think that too, as much as signing guys in free agency, is the fact that the fans get so frustrated that this team is not, and they just don't make big salary changes in the middle of a season, where they'll watch other teams, and hey, that's other teams that will dump or add or do whatever they've got to do mid-season, and I think that frustrates fans.
Yeah, no doubt. And when you look at the differences between the Indians organization and some of the others in baseball, whether it's New York or Boston or whoever, even clubs like Texas and the White Sox and the Tigers, even, they're willing to go out and roll the dice and spend some money and take big losses. Now, the Indians take those too. Ashford's a great example. The guy that's so obscure that last year, that his name is escaping me, that we signed for Axford-like money, $5-6 million. Was it Myers? Am I right about that?
Oh yeah, last year.
It turned out to be a complete zero. And
$7 million.
Completely eat that. And so the Indians are eating $5 and $6 million at a crack when they make a mistake versus 15 or 20 or $100 million in the case of Yankees and some of these other teams that they just are able to absorb and willing to absorb far greater losses when they swing and miss on a guy. The difference with the Cavs, of course, and the Browns too is like night and day, because in baseball you can spend whatever you want.
Right, they're capped sports.
It makes a lot more sense in baseball to have an owner, which I'm fond of saying, a guy with more money than sense. A George Steinbrenner who doesn't care, if his team, spends $100 million on a guy and get nothing out of him, and that's okay. You can, the Dolans obviously can't do that, and lots of owners in baseball can't do that. But it is an apples to oranges comparison if you're comparing baseball to the other two sports which have salary caps.
And I'll keep going back to baseball and saying that's your fault. I mean, if we talk about the gap that is widening between baseball and especially the NFL, but even the NBA in some circles. And as much as we talk about long games and old traditions and young fans and all of that stuff, man, I will always to this day fight the fact that the non-salary capped aspect. And some people tell me, well, fans don't care how much guys make. And I'm like, no, but the fact that there is so much inequity in baseball turns off more fans than you realize. I mean, and that is the truth of the game and the absorbance of it. I mean, totally unrelated but similar. I remember hearing LeBron talk before about how much money he would make if he was in Major League Baseball, and he was dead on. He'd probably make $500 million based on the kind of contracts that the top guys are getting. These guys are cashing in on $350 million deals, so what's to say that LeBron James wouldn't get the cost of a whole franchise just for his 10-year contract if there was a uncapped limit there like there is in basketball and football? But you've got to think that those mechanisms are part of what is making those leagues continue to grow, even in the small markets, even in the other markets, and then, baseball. And still it's spending your money right, because I agree that the Indians have ate some money too. They're eating $30 million right now on two guys that are giving them nothing, Swisher and Bourne. And now there's where people can say evaluation and decisions on where you spent your money. And even there, I point to the fact that they signed those guys. And Jonathan Knight and I laughed about it because they couldn't even get the ticket advantage off of signing those guys because they didn't get them until spring training or right before spring training. So, or Swisher was a little earlier, but you know what I'm saying. It was beyond the period where most people buy their season tickets. You know how you and I have talked about having to jack up that season ticket thing. So they didn't even get like the season ticket bump of the excitement of spending $100 million or whatever that they did. They didn't even get that bonus of it. But, at the end of the day, I know you agree with me, man, until baseball changes that, and their union is just never going to do it. Their union is not giving in on the salary cap. They don't have to. They've got all the leverage over the league. But I think until they do, that gap is going to continue to widen because there's so much inequity. And I'm not just saying this because we're here in Cleveland.
Well, you're right about that, and that the union is never going to allow that to happen. At the same time, like you say, it's how you spend your money. Here's one of the smallest market teams, the Oakland Athletics, with the best record in baseball, and one of the lower payrolls. And so it can be done. And teams like Cincinnati and Pittsburgh that are also in small markets been competitive in the last couple of years by just getting lucky and having good player evaluation and building through the farm system, those kinds of things. So, those teams, as long as Oakland is out there, the best record in baseball, it's proving that it can be done. And I also want to go back to the Indians and just agree with you what I heard you saying beforehand, before I got on here, and that is that even if we're writing off this year, we are not writing off 20 years. We are not writing off 30 years. We are not writing off 40 years. We are not writing off 50 years. We are not writing off 60 years. We are not writing off 70 years. We are not writing off 80 years. We are not writing off 90 years. We are not writing off 100 years. We are not writing off 200 years. We are not writing off 300 years. We are not writing off 400 years. We are not writing off 500 years. We are not writing off 600 years. We are not writing off 700 years. We are not writing off 800 years. We are not writing off 900 years. We are not writing off 1,000 years. We are not writing off 2,000 years. We are not writing off 3,000 years. We are not writing off 4,000 years. We are not writing off 5,000 years. We are not writing off 10,000 years. We are not writing off 20,000 years. We are this core.
No.
And by